You're well known as a LinkedIn wizard, but you were also deep in the fashion game for a while. Tell me about the Global Development Studies course you took at Queen's University and how it propelled you into content creation.
Wow, you've done your homework. Look at this, coming right out of the gate with a banger. So the great thing is I remember nothing about the actual course except one small aspect of it, and it was a documentary that we got to watch. So there you go for university. It was a documentary called The True Cost, and basically what it is, it's just a quick overview of the effects of the fashion industry. So it's the second largest polluting industry in the world. We all buy stuff from H&M and Zara. $5 shirts, $7 shirts, and they're essentially made by slaves in third world countries. This course exposed all of it. So we dove, me and my ex at the time took the course together, dove into it, and were just blown away. Like basically all the clothes we were wearing were made by either child slaves or underpaid workers. And so I was like, it kind of bothered me and moved me. And so we went, why don't we start a blog on this? Now, this was 2016, so way before the sustainability thing was really a big deal. It wasn't that common. Like anyone that we kind of mentioned what we were doing, like, hey, we started a sustainability blog for fashion. They all thought we were weird. It was not a trendy thing at all. So yeah, just started a blog and went and spent $3,000 and bought and researched a bunch of clothes from brands that said they were sustainable, paid their workers fairly. So we went and spent the money to buy the clothes, took pictures, posted it on Instagram, and within a month started getting brands reaching out saying, hey, can we send you, our clothes? Will you promote it on Instagram? Started doing it, and then it took off, man. It was right in the beginning of influencer marketing on Instagram, and managed to leverage it into a business. So
It's awesome. Yeah, it was pretty early still. I remember like influencers didn't even really start until like 2014 or something. So that's still pretty early on the wave. And I went back in your Twitter to see like some of the stuff that you were posting back then. And really it was just a lot of links to Sutton and Grove, which was your blog. And it wasn't until February 2020 when you actually dropped your first tweet, and it that wasn't, to a link out, and all it said was, can't believe how busy McDonald's is at noon on a Monday.
yeah.
And you and I have had some talks about how, our lives now are basically just working and working out. So I'm curious how your healthy lifestyle now has played a part in your work. And do you still eat at McDonald's?
Great question. So I have to say I scraped my Twitter completely. So I deleted years of tweets. So that's why you only saw some links that I obviously forgot to delete, which I'll have to go
I
back.
did the same thing. I did the same
Yeah,
thing.
I scraped it, man. I think my Twitter, I can't remember when it started, but I had a whole bunch of tweets about sustainability and none of that, like it didn't do very well anyways. Just to say, like there were actual tweets about that business. I just definitely cut them. Now, before getting into your question, it was actually a problem because I had about 5,000 followers that were all from that niche. And now I'm very much the opposite of that niche. I'm like hustle bro. I eat steak. I swear. Like it's the opposite of the kind of people that I worked with. So funny side note. No, I do not eat at McDonald's anymore. I quit doing that junk last year. I am a carnivore, so I literally only eat steak and burgers now. I'm very obsessive with my fitness, so I'm doing 750 push-ups a day. I do 15K steps a day. I work out twice a day. Super obsessive. But back then, nah. I drank a bunch of whiskey, McDonald's, pizza. That was actually a part of my branding on LinkedIn. I would give away a pizza every single every single Friday for meme contests that I ran on LinkedIn. So very unhealthy. I'm much healthier now.
Yeah, they weren't a big fan of those contests. We'll get back to that in a minute. But I know you also had like bacon was part of your brand too, right? I want you to, or like that you hated bacon or whatever. I have
Yep.
actually, fun fact about me, I've never had bacon in my entire life, and I
Seriously.
won't. So yeah, so we definitely are aligned there. I don't know if you're still a bacon hater. I'm not a hater. I'm just like, yeah, I've just never done it.
Really? Like for no reason? Just never had it.
When I was a kid, I was really picky, and for whatever reason, it just irked me. And then I've been plant based for the last 7 years, so there's been no reason to.
There you go. That makes sense. I thought you were just like you had a normal diet and you just didn't eat bacon. That'd be weird.
I did for a little bit, man. It was like I figured that it was just something that I'd probably like because everyone's always obsessed with it. So I just figured, fuck it,
All
I just won't even start at this point. I've never done it.
right.
Um, but I want to go back a couple years as well to COVID, and I know that kind of impacted a lot of what you had going on with your Instagram clients, and a lot of people like cut their marketing budgets, and then you had recently rejoined LinkedIn because of Gary Vee. Shout out Gary Vee. And then you
Yeah.
went back all in into LinkedIn. You were just like, okay, this is my time to shine. And you posted so much on a daily basis. You were spending like 8 to 10 hours that you were getting blocked by the API every day, which is amazing. And so you had this strategy really, and you still do to some extent, where you just are like very much yourself, and you're like, you have this over the top personality that you just fire from the hip, and it cut through a lot of the noise on LinkedIn, which was maybe a little more buttoned up and professional, and it helped you stand out a lot. How do you recommend people do that and kind of get more comfortable being themselves on social media?
That's a great question. I would say for me, I think part of it's time. Like I started out on Instagram and Facebook primarily, and then a little bit of Twitter, and it was very buttoned up. Like I did the complete opposite of what I do now. I spoke nothing of myself. It was about 3 years on Instagram of strictly promoting sustainable brands, high level photography, videography, blog post articles. Like everything was very just, it was just like a commercial, man. Like I was writing to give exposure to these brands. There was no storytelling. There was no personal voice, nothing. Like the complete opposite of what I do now. And I was good at it. It just was boring, to be honest with you. It had no flair, no sauce, nothing. So I think by doing that, I got comfortable with writing in a social media setting on a social media style, because obviously it's very different than writing for, say, a university or academia. So I got comfortable with the platforms, just writing on it. When I joined LinkedIn, I'd been on social long enough and I didn't really need the platform to work for me at the time. Little did I know COVID would hit and I would need the platform to work. But when I joined in late 2019, I didn't need it. So to me, I just went, you know what, I'm just going to experiment with actually writing my actual thoughts and from my tone of view, just for fucks, to be honest with you. Like I had no real vision or goal. I just went, I'm just going to write. And it just kind of worked out. I think just right time and place. And like you say, the platform is very buttoned up. I can't really think of anybody else that did my style other than Leah Turner. Shout out to Leah Turner. She also was very unhinged, and has done really well for herself on LinkedIn. She's got like 140,000, 150,000 followers, a coaching business. And, when she joined, we joined at the same time, and she was running a transcription company. So similar kind of thing, like right place, right time, both unhinged, different style. Not many people were doing on the platform. It was very like, hey, this isn't Facebook. Go back to Facebook. And, I was posting memes and pizza contests and literal posts about how much I hated bacon, and just no one was doing that. And I think because of that, I stood out. So to answer your question, like how do you be yourself on social media? It's a really tough one because I think it requires a little bit of an unhinged mind. Like you literally need to not care what people think of you to actually risk having a different tone of voice, and that requires life experience. Like you need to just have lived enough life that you don't have many fucks left, so you will write whatever you want and accept that you're going to get hate, you're going to get love, and it doesn't bother you. And that's why I connected with Gary Vee, because honestly that was his message back then, was all about, hey, just put yourself out there. I don't hear the noise, I don't hear the love, I don't hear the hate. I just document my story and put it out there. And I loved that message from him. And that's why I followed him and joined LinkedIn, and it worked for me. So honestly, it's the toughest thing with coaching. Like when I coach people now, I talk to them, they ask me, how are you so free with sharing anything or even telling your story? Like I've talked about, my struggles with alcohol and depression and some really personal things. And it just doesn't bother me. Like I can share about that, to a ton of people, and it doesn't bug me if someone criticizes me or praises me. Like honestly, either way, it doesn't affect me. And to be honest, I don't know how to teach that. I don't know how to give that other than just go live life enough that you experience enough that you lose most of your fucks. So when you come to social media, you realize it's just a game. It doesn't matter that much. And I mean, I think most people take it too seriously, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the whole, I mean, life is just a game, right? And then these, you have these like games that are nested within games, and it's really just like, how do you hack it? How do you feel comfortable in it? How do you just do what you have to do? And I love you keep using the word unhinged, which I think is so cool that you've just owned that word, because a lot of times that has like a negative connotation, but you've really used it positively. And I think that some of that like unhingedness, maybe it goes into like the volume that you post as well. Like you just fire off a lot of content. Some people, they have like, oh, 3 times a day I do this, I do this. I heard you say in the past, you said nobody remembers what you posted last week, they just remember the sum of who you are. And so
Yeah,
you have this like blitzkrieg style content strategy. How do you think about like quantity versus quality, and how do you manage your time around that?
it's a great question. It's interesting because I've changed completely in the last 4 months. I used to be a huge quantity guy, and I think now I would say when you're starting out on social, I think you need to be quantity just to get the reps in, just like the gym. Like you need to just hit it. And the more you put out there, the more detached you get from the results of your content, the better you get at writing content, the faster you get. Same thing with comments. Like people overthink their comments way too much. Like just get in there. And I'm always like, say the first thing in your head, get it out there. If you spend more than 10 seconds, you're spending too much time, in my opinion. And so I think most people overthink everything and they just need to put the reps in. However, now I'm the opposite. Now, like I go through my posts 3 or 4 times and I re-edit them and I change the hooks and I'm very careful with it. And I think it's because my audience is bigger. Number one, number two, the platforms have changed. I think LinkedIn back in 2020, 2021, you could post 2 or 3 times a day, get incredible traffic. There was one day I tested it. I post 10 times in one day and every single post had great engagement, tons of impressions, tons of likes, and the algorithm just isn't that way anymore. Like it's tough for anybody to do well on 2 posts a day on LinkedIn, and I think Twitter's going that way too, man. I think the Twitter algorithm change is shifting. The long tweets obviously are what's trending. I don't know if those short tweets are going to work as well, and people used to pump out like 5 to 7 of those a day, and I just think that social's getting so competitive your content has to be better, and it is a quality game. Um, so that's kind of where I think social's trending. But I would say for anyone new, like you need to do quantity just to get comfortable with post bombing. Like I tell people, put a ton out there. Like I want to see, I want you to feel what it feels like to have one like on your post and stomach that, and then go out and post again and get over it right away. And the opposite, right after a viral post, get out there and watch yourself get 20 likes. Like we all say we don't care, but we all care about our engagement. We all care about our community. And I think unless you get that volume out there and you deal with how it feels like, you're always going to struggle. So,
Yeah. People need to push, push, push in the beginning. And that also helps you find your niche and what you want to talk about. Because a lot of people don't know that right off the bat. So it's not only like you want to build that audience and get out in front of people and get the reps, but it's also like it helps you push through your own ideas to actually discover yourself and your thoughts, and of course get better as you go. And sometimes when you post a lot like that, you even maybe break terms of service here and there. I don't know if you know anything about that. There was an incident that I guess that had the word biatch, which I haven't actually heard that word in over a decade. So thank you for that. Can you tell that story? And then also, if you can, like, try your best to rattle off what happened the other 6 times you were banned from LinkedIn.
I should write all these out and put them in a carousel. To be honest, it's very difficult. So the last time I got banned, I'll try and go back to remember. The last time I got banned, I've been racing my friend Matt Barker. He's a fellow LinkedIn copywriter to 100,000 followers, which he beat me unfortunately, and I'm fucking pissed about it. But he beat me, he got me there, and you know what? He deserved to win. Another story for another day. But anyway, so we were racing to 100K. He's the opposite of me. He's very buttoned up, creates very educational content about copywriting and growing on LinkedIn, like ultimate professional. Like you'll never see him say a bad word about anybody. I've always been the unhinged guy that'll go tag someone and call them out. And I used to host meme battles and shit on influencers. And I did everything that you're not supposed to do on LinkedIn or social. That was me. But I got banned. The last time I got banned, man, all I said was Matt Barker is unpleasant to look at. And I literally got banned for 2 days because of that comment.
That's it. That's all it took. Oh, is it because
That's
did you have was it your
unpleasant to look at.
reputation that
Yes.
preceded you?
So I think there's a reputation score. I can't confirm, but I think because I've been flagged in the past, it just doesn't take much for me to get banned. So that ban literally got me out for 2 days. I did get back in, but I had a conversation with like the security team, and I got a warning. It's like, if you get reported again, if you get banned again, your account's done. You're not going to come back. And so for now, like every time I post on LinkedIn, every comment I leave, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this could be the last one for me. I could be done. And I have 98,000 followers. I have a multi six-figure business riding on me, and I'm very unhinged, saying the wrong thing and getting banned for good. So that's where I'm at now. The one before was, again, it was Matt Barker. I can't remember what I said. His fans are very sensitive, is what I'm trying to tell you. They're very sensitive. They're very protective, and I would call them soft. None of them would make it on Twitter. That's why he's not very good on Twitter either, because he's a LinkedIn guy. LinkedIn guys they're sensitive. I'm much more of a Twitter guy for some reason. I just made it on LinkedIn because I'm different. But the biatch one, to be honest, I don't even remember, man. I don't even remember the story. I just know I know everyone else can say fuck and shit on LinkedIn and get away with it, and I can't even say biatch, and I got banned for 2 days for that as well. And I don't remember. I should go find it and put it in a carousel, but
Such a good word.
I
Such
don't
a
know,
good
man.
word. Yo, guys, real quick, if you're enjoying the Louder podcast, you're going to love Louder Spaces. Every week, twice a week, I host Spaces on X unlike any other Spaces you've heard before. We've created a real audio experience and bring in big, influential accounts to discuss topics around personal brand, content, and monetization. We use custom AI audio, react to clips from other podcasts and videos, and we have what's called Amplify, where we bring audience members on stage and everyone in the room likes, comments, and retweets their content and gets them tons of exposure. You could be the next person we blow up. Just come by Louder Spaces every Wednesday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Follow me on X at GregLunt27. See you there. But you're right. Twitter is a little harsher. You actually slid in my comment section today and challenged me a little bit. So, and then we
I
started going
did.
up and back in the Telegram a little. And I thought, hey, why don't we just bring it to the podcast? So, I tweeted today, Spaces is the most powerful networking channel on social media. Changed my mind. And you responded, it's a bunch of hot air. The money's on LinkedIn. And so let's just start it off. Give me your overall take on Spaces and kind of audio on social media.
So, okay, I was a big Clubhouse hater to start with, so I'll put that out there. I shit on Clubhouse heavily. LinkedIn people loved Clubhouse, so there was a lot of trainers that raked from LinkedIn. Like they got early on Clubhouse, and they were hosting these LinkedIn sessions like 3 times a week, and they raked, man. They made a ton of money, and so I can't hate. Well done. But to me, it turned into, again, like if you're on stage and you've got clout, you ruled on Clubhouse. And to me, I got banned on Clubhouse too after 7 days. Um, anyways, won't do that. But anyways, I made fun of Clubhouse, and then Spaces I think is better because like at least there's real conversation. But again, I just feel like it's dominated by influencers, people on stage, and they basically get to preach sermons to people. And then you got a bunch of passive people in the audience that wish they were an influencer, and they're never going to be one. But they think that by hanging out in Spaces long enough, they'll be noticed and they'll be able to get on stage and collect a few followers. So to me, it's this game that I just don't like playing. Also, Spaces are heavily botted. All the big Spaces are botted, and I think it's a bunch of bullshit. So if you're not botting, then you're not collecting all the followers. If you are botting, you're full of shit. And it's a popularity game, and I don't love the popularity game, I guess, that comes with Spaces. Now, LinkedIn audio events, they're starting to push them. So like I've seen some pretty big audio events, but it's a similar kind of thing. It's like if you're on stage, you get followers, you get the attention, it's useful. If you're not, to me, it's a waste of time. Now, the interaction with Q&A, I know you're going to say, like, I feel like that is where the value is. So if you have a genuine back and forth in Q&A, I think that part of Spaces or LinkedIn audio events, it can be useful for people that are wanting to learn about a specific industry or topic or what have you. So I do see the value in that. I just think, like, personally, it's just a big clout game for influencers trying to build their personal brands, and I'm not really into that. To me, it's a waste of time, and I can network with these influencers in my DMs and hop on a call, and that's good enough for me. I don't need to go play the game in Spaces and feel important in front of people. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think the opposite in that I don't think it's that valuable for people with a big audience. I think maybe if you're gearing up for a launch or something and you want to get your face out there again, but I think the real value is for smaller accounts and for beginners. Not just the Q and A's, like you said, which are great, which you can get up on stage, ask a great question, lead with a little bit of your story and some value, and maybe get some people clicking through your profile. And then, of course, asking a good question and then following up with the people that were on stage that you got introduced to and use it as a bit of a networking tool as well after the fact. Hey, thanks for answering my question, whatever. Just start to open up that line of communication. But also, if these individuals start hosting spaces of their own and then inviting other people to interview, such as like me or you, that we don't have like the biggest accounts in the world, but if you're taking something seriously and you have 500 or 1,000 followers and you're running a consistent space and you're like, hey, we'd love to interview you. I know you did one with Ryan Ayala. I'm not sure how many followers he has. He's got a couple thousand maybe. But he took it
Hmm.
seriously enough that you were like, sure, I'll
He
come do
did.
it. And, you guys get an audience, they siphons your audience. And for small accounts, I've seen countless people that are going from 50 followers to 800 followers in 3 weeks, in a month. So
Nice.
once you get to like, I talked about this with Clint Murphy a bit. He was like, I don't know if it's 25,000, 50,000. The time, like, opportunity cost starts to become a little more questionable when maybe you could be spending it
Sure.
on something more around monetization, or even, maybe you build some engagement groups with people your size. You can write threads that are going to get more exposure. But it's also a great way to kind of establish authority, in my opinion. Like for me, for instance, I could have tweeted about, I have a long history of social audio, and I feel like I could have tweeted about that for a while, but I did louder spaces and I put myself on the map within a week. I was being known as the
Hmm.
spaces guy. And so just getting your voice out there, I think really helps you cut through the noise. But I did want to ask you about, you mentioned the LinkedIn audio events, and I was really curious about that because it's obviously a different audience,
Yeah.
a more professional audience, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Um, I think those have a lot of potential. What have you seen from those so far, and do you think they can go anywhere?
I agree. I think they have more potential than LinkedIn Live Video, which hasn't really gone anywhere in I think 4 years. They've launched it. It's still in beta, believe it or not. It gets bad reach, like LinkedIn Video gets terrible reach, but LinkedIn Audio, I've started to see some pretty big events being hosted, and people do love them. And it's more of the Q&A seems to work really well on LinkedIn, whereas I feel like Twitter, there's better discussion. It seems like if you're into spaces, like you are, another, and my cousin's the same. Brock, he hosts spaces all the time, and if you're into that thing, I think Twitter definitely for discussion is better. But the LinkedIn ones that are Q&A geared, like people really enjoy those that are like really specific to an industry, and they seem to be pushing it more. So I do think there's potential. There's not a lot of like elite hosts on LinkedIn yet because it's LinkedIn. I think more creators obviously are on a Twitter or a YouTube or an Instagram, whereas LinkedIn, there's not a lot of elite creators yet, especially in the audio space. So I would say definitely room for that. Now the only issue is on Twitter, spaces can get pushed in the algorithm, whereas on LinkedIn, it's heavily based on your follower size and then the kind of the campaign that you run before the event, right? So you can invite up to 1,000 people per week to your event if you have that many followers. So if you coordinate kind of like a pre-marketing campaign, it works better on a LinkedIn, and you need that because you don't get the virality that you would get on a Twitter Space if it starts going well, right? So I think that's the main difference is LinkedIn doesn't really push the audio outside of your network, whereas Twitter, there's the potential for that every single space. From what I've seen, there's potential for it to you to grow listeners as you're going if it's a great space. Whereas on LinkedIn, it always goes down. Like whatever you start at after about 10 minutes, it slowly trickles down. Like there's no potential for like a viral audio room on LinkedIn. So I think that's a key difference. But having said that, there's definitely value. I think on LinkedIn, there's bigger potential to drive lead gen from your spaces because basically what you can get is you host an event, you can invite all these people, and whether they show up or not, the fact that they've agreed to attend, like you have their name on a list, and so you can follow up a lot easier and know that this person was interested in this event about AI. Even if they didn't show up, I can go back and follow up with them and send them either a link to the recording or a link to a product, or and so like some people are doing that based off of even LinkedIn video and converting really well for their business based off it. It's a pretty underrated tactic that not a lot of people are doing. So all to say, I do think there's potential for it. It's just a different animal than Twitter.
Yeah, I think audio is really powerful. And I know you're not a big podcast guy, but podcasting is on the rise in terms of listenership. And it allows you to do a
Yeah,
lot of things with the multitasking and just weave it into your daily life. And the long form conversations that people have tend to be really valuable. And so, like, for this, for instance, and I think that LinkedIn, I mean, there's when it comes to something as like, oh, it doesn't expose it out of network. I think that's just like one feature change and that's different. And so I would
true.
encourage people to like experiment with that because I do think audio is a huge wave. Obviously, I'm biased, but that's something that I really
You're
feel
right.
strongly about. I'm sure me and you will chop that up because I think there's potential there
Yeah,
in the future. But I do want to ask you about go back to Twitter real quick and talk about growth because I know at one point you were messing around with some paid ads. You had a guy that was getting you some high quality followers and you drove some leads off of those as well. But they've
yeah.
recently removed the followers kind of campaign objective
Yeah.
within the ad platform. Are you still running Twitter ads for growth, X ads, I guess?
No.
And what's your growth strategy overall there?
So I stopped because of that. So the feature stopped. The guy running my ads had to stop, and I guess it's just waiting to see what X does moving forward. For me, it drove leads. So like I was driving followers, which was a bonus. Good and bad, I would say, because I think they're mostly empty followers. Like they were related to the stuff that I talked about because he was running the ads based off of my content. So boosting stuff that I'd already shared. So people were following based off of posts that I've shared or things that I've done. So they were relevant, but I found they don't really engage a heck of a lot unless you go engage with them and then activate them, which I don't have the time to do that on Twitter. And Twitter is just for me like a place to reshare LinkedIn content or run my mouth, to be honest. So I ran ads so that I could have another source of lead gen, and I converted two high ticket leads in I think 2 months of running ads on that, which is pretty good. Had a few phone calls. I wouldn't say a bunch. I think there was 4 or 5 from that Twitter campaign, but I didn't spend a lot. So to be honest, for converting to getting a few phone calls, getting some followers in there, I think it was pretty good ROI. Whereas now I'm basically just taking my long form stories from LinkedIn and tweaking them slightly for Twitter and posting those because I've seen and read the algorithm change. The NFT God posted kind of the update, and I've seen like payback kind of content is what's working now on Twitter, anyways. And so I do that, and then I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I do the paid retweet thing. We can edit that out if I'm not supposed to say that, but I do that, and I've seen all the big influencers do it. And so if anyone's struggling on Twitter, hey, there's a reason why people go viral. There's all these strategies, right? You got the engagement groups, you got paid retweets, you got ads. Like most people, to me, getting a huge engagement, they're hacking it in some way. Like social media is all the same. It's the same on Instagram, LinkedIn. There's not as much of that, but a lot of people do that as well. It's all a game, right? And so I don't view it as a bad thing at all because there's a pro to it and a negative to it. I've tested that out. Sometimes it's been good and bad. So I would say I don't really have an overall strategy because it's just a secondary platform that, like, all my leads are driven from LinkedIn. I've kind of accepted the risk of going heavy on one platform because I'm confident that if I get banned and I just focused 100% on Twitter, I'd crush Twitter too. And if I got banned from Twitter, I could go crush YouTube. And I'm not really worried about like getting banned and having to go to another platform. I just think that in 2023, it's really tough to do even two platforms well. And I think I've just accepted that. And Twitter's more of just like, hey, here's my LinkedIn post. And, I know a few people and I'll engage with you and maybe something pops and maybe it doesn't, but whatever.
I think you're doing a good job on Twitter. I think like the strategy that you have, I don't know exactly the package you got, but I know you can get the paid retweet stuff for like, each, let's say, bundle of retweets that you get that you can assign towards a post. It averages out to maybe like $30 or something like that.
It's not
And so if
bad.
you're
Yeah.
spending, one long post per day for a month. That's like $1,000 for the month.
Yeah.
And you already have all the content already done from your LinkedIn. And so you're just bringing it over, pushing it into the algo, adding a little
Yeah.
bit of, gas behind it, and you're growing. And so I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, it does pretty well. Like it gets without the ads now, I think it's around like on a good tweet, it's around 50, a bad one, 50 followers a day. On a bad one, it's like 10 to 15. And that's without doing much engagement. Like I compared to LinkedIn, I'm slacking. Like I do like 15 minutes on Twitter. It's not nearly enough. I know you need to do way more. And so I think for what the effort that I'm putting in, the leads that I've got out of it, I've gotten like I got a publication feature on Inc.com because of a tweet, working on entrepreneur.com because of a tweet. So for me, the ROI has been great for how much effort I've put in, which isn't a lot. I would say I've gotten a lot out of Twitter. And again, like I'd love to spend more time there because I do enjoy Twitter or X. I guess I should call it X. I do enjoy X more than LinkedIn. It's just, you know how it is. Like when you're at a good level on a platform like I am on LinkedIn, the ROI for me is so high when I spend time there and I answer my DMs and my comments, and any minute that I'm not on there that I'm putting on an X or on a Threads. Even I enjoyed Threads, but I just couldn't keep it up, man, because every minute that I spend there and I'm not spending on LinkedIn, I'm sacrificing ROI potential that is just bigger right now. So it's a tough call, right? You can only be in so many places. So
You took the words right out of my mouth with the Threads thing, because I remember, you were really dominating there those first few weeks. The engagement was out of control, and that's your whole thing already. Is like you get thousands of comments literally on your LinkedIn stuff, and you brought over like a lot of that energy right over to Threads, and you've slowed down considerably there. Can we just are we putting the nail in the coffin there? Is Threads dead?
yes, I think it's dead. I think like it was so exciting in the beginning. I loved it. I loved the chaos, the energy. It was great, and then it just died. They lost so many users, and I just think to get it back is going to be tough. And I think it's just the Instagram users, man. It's an Instagram. They tried to push it from Instagram. They got a bunch of people to come over, and the fact is, Instagram users are fucking lazy. They're used to just posting a selfie with no clothes on or putting a video up, or like they're the fucking laziest social media users on any platform. Even TikTok users are better. At least they're creative videos and they're funny. Like to me, Instagram is a bunch of useless people. I hate that platform. And so like going over from Instagram to Threads, like of course they weren't gonna last because Threads is all written. You need to be witty and smart, and I don't know. I know I'm like shitting on Instagram, but like I thought it had a chance because you had some clout from Instagram. It was exciting. So you had the Twitter people come and the LinkedIn people come, and you could be a little bit more unhinged than you could be on LinkedIn. But it just lost momentum, and I think it's tough now. There's just so little engagement, and the feed's a mess. You can't really search for things. I think it's dead.
I think the only way it would have worked is if they were just pouring new features in all the time. Like they I don't know if they were ready for what happened. And I think it kind of even caught them
No.
off guard. And if they had known, they probably would have had a bunch of updates just
Yeah.
in the back pocket to feed people and keep them satisfied, because
Yeah.
it's just X copy pasted. It's still
I
that
know.
months later.
Yeah, it's true. Like I think the main difference in the beginning I enjoyed was just the app was really smooth. I think compared to X, I think it was a smoother experience for me. The speed was amazing. Like the chaos of the feed in the beginning was a lot of fun. And I just think it couldn't replicate the excitement because the excitement was how chaotic it was. You were growing followers because everyone was coming over from Instagram and you got all the dopamine. And then once that stopped, and you're like, oh, my follower count's not going up, and no one cares about my posts anymore, and the dopamine was gone, and everyone quit. So it had a good run though. It was a fun week.
It was about a week there, yeah. And Nicholas Cole, he actually posted on Threads, and we talked about it on my podcast. He compared
Yeah.
the first week of any new social platform that has any kind of buzz to the first week or a new update to an MMORPG, where like you're in
Okay.
these worlds and everyone's kind of like exploring together, like, so what are we doing here, like what's going on, this is really
Yeah.
fun, but at least we're all together exploring, and there's no
Yes.
toxicity, and it's just you're just
Yeah, it's
in
true.
free like experimentation and collaboration and community. And there's something so like so great about that, because there's so few environments where humans can just completely have fun and not worry about anything. And Threads had
It's
that moment.
true. That's what it was. That's what it was, man. It was just like you were just having fun. Like that. That's what I felt was just. It wasn't about educational content or people. Yeah, there was some clout, but it wasn't really about that. It wasn't about. It was just you could just be unhinged and have fun, and everyone was doing it. And then it was gone, and then it was like, okay, well, now we're back to being humans.
Just a little unhinged fun, basically Luke Matthews,
Yeah.
to a T. Uh, but LinkedIn is treating you just fine. You got over 98,000 followers now, as you mentioned. Have you figured out how you're going to celebrate for 100K, or are you just you're too cool for it?
It's not that I'm too cool. It's that I do not find the achievement worthwhile because I didn't beat Matt Barker. So like that's the only reason I cared about 100K is I wanted to win our challenge and I lost. And now I literally don't care. I will not celebrate it. I won't post about it. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna even acknowledge it. To me, I actually I hate losing at Tiddlywinks, man. Let alone like I raced this guy in front of thousands of people and he beat me, and I'm still angry about it, to be honest.
Okay, well, mark Tiddlywinks off on your bingo cards for the podcast, whoever's keeping track. But listen, man, here's my proposal. You're going to cross 100K. I don't know what your growth rate is, probably in the next couple of weeks, right? So I'm
It'll be
going,
this week.
okay, this week. Well, even better. I'm going to EDC Orlando in November. Dakota Robertson, Taylor Simmons, and your friend Laura are all going, and a bunch of other people. I know you're in
Laura's going.
She's going. I know you're in South America, but what's it going to take to get
She's
you
not
up there?
going.
You're going to treat yourself. She is going.
Surprising. Probably won't go, man. I'm in monk mode. I got money to make, and if I go to an event like that, I'm unhinged, and I'll just do stuff that I don't want to do. And I got $1 million to make in 2024. I got an agency to build, and I can't be at a place like that, or I'll get fucking loaded, and it'll send me into a spiral. I've been sober for 4 months now. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing edibles. I'm not doing anything. And if I go to a place like that, I will do it all and have an amazing time, but it'll fuck me up. So I won't be there.
All right, respect. Well, then I'll have to come down to South America at some point and we'll kick it. But listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I have a ton of respect for you. Ever since we first met, we had a great call a few months ago and just hit it off. And you've been so supportive, in the DMs and helping retweet my stuff and just my comment section. You're always giving me value, and you're there to lend a helping hand. And I think we have a long relationship in front of us, and I'm super grateful to have you on the show. Would you take this moment to share anything that you want to give to my audience in terms of, where to point them for your content, or just maybe like a lasting message, why they should be on LinkedIn, anything like that you think is important?
Sure. I'll say that if you want to learn formatting and copywriting, and I think anyone on X over the next 6 months is going to need to learn that because I think long form tweets are starting to rule. With threads, it's a completely different way of writing to long form tweets. You need to learn formatting to get people to read what you're sharing. And if you want to learn formatting, you need to come over to LinkedIn and follow me because I'm a formatting god and I primarily teach it on LinkedIn. And I think if you can learn it, you can post the same thing on LinkedIn and Twitter with slight differences. And it's much easier than it's been in the last 2 years. So like that's one reason. Reason number two is yes, you can tap into the creator economy on X. On LinkedIn, all the money's there. So if you want to make money outside of just getting paid through your subscriber thing that you set up, or I don't know how you monetize on X, on LinkedIn, there's a bunch of people with money. There's not a lot of good creators. So if you come over and you learn LinkedIn, it's a way easier platform to grow on. So you should really come over to LinkedIn if you're on X and get over the fact that, yeah, it's stuffy and it's lame and everything, but there's a lot of money to be made. As far as me, you can follow me. I've got some exciting projects coming up that I can't talk about, but hey, come find me on LinkedIn or X.
We didn't really talk about it today, guys, but if you are interested in LinkedIn, Luke is your guy. He's a LinkedIn ghostwriter. That's his whole business. He helps people grow over there and build their audience and their brands. So if you're trying to make some more money on a different platform and experiment, definitely reach out to Luke. I'll have all his stuff in the description. Thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you too, man. This was fun.